Hello there, everyone. You know who I am, E.D. Templar, Alien Crusader, from beyond the heavens, here to entertain, destroy through the power of me, magic. So I'm probably getting myself in more trouble, but I feel as if this has to be said. So, Callie, or Life of a Free Spirit, this thing, started judging Chantal for saying that Chantal had Native friends, referring to Native Americans. She was shortening Native American to Native, which isn't really racist. That's like saying you have Scot friends, right? It's short for Scottish. Or you have Irish friends. Or depending on your lineage and your history and your people you're with, you can say Fenian. Of course, if the wrong people says that, that's very faux pas and a slur. But to get back on track, Life of a Free Spirit was speaking for Native Americans as a whole, and she couldn't name one Native American tribe. And I'm just saying Native American as a group from Canada and America. There's Iroquois, Comanche, Apache, Crow, Lakota, and the Mohawks, right? And the Seminole Indians. So, and the only reason why I know this is because I follow American history. There's even one great Native American, Tecumseh, which during the War of 1812, he had this dream of forming a united Native American states. That was his dream, but unfortunately he fell in combat, and that dream fell apart, and he treated his prisoners and enemies with respect. And he's even honored, I think it's in West Point, or there's an academy somewhere in New York. You'll have to look this up. I can't remember off the top of my head, where they have a statue honoring Tecumseh. So while although like American and Native American and Canadian history is pretty freaking bad, you know, and wars and ethnic violence and what have you, I'm not going to pretend and hand wave away like that wasn't anything. But for Life of a Free Spirit to speak on the behalf of the Native Americans and indigenous people is kind of heresy. And from what I'd seen of her stream, she was basically trying to champion them, right? Which, I will say this, it's free to give lip service to someone, okay? But does that lift someone out of their issue, their problem? No, it doesn't. And there's one more thing I want to get into. Chantal mentioned that this Native American person was an alcoholic and had a drinking problem. And Callie, Life of a Free Spirit, was saying that this was some racist statement, right? That Chantal was basically saying that all Native Americans and indigenous peoples have drinking or a predisposition to drinking, which isn't the case. Now, I will follow this up with some facts and history. So the European American, or the Europeans, all throughout their history, they have had access to beer, mead, whiskey, wine. And in Germany, mead was considered liquid bread because sometimes they didn't have access to bread or food, and mead was their substance. So Europeans, for the most part, have had a steady diet of alcohol. Their livers have been, over time, developed to filter it better, to withstand it, and to hold their liquor better. This is just history. You can look this up if you so wish. Now, if we compare and contrast this with the Native American populace, most of their existence and their history is not based off mead, whiskey, alcohol, beer. In fact, their culture, relatively, historically speaking, is new to the idea of alcohol. So they were only introduced to it around, I want to say, the 15th? I could be wrong. 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. This was the first time ever in their existence that they had access to alcohol, beer, wine, and other spirits, right? So in context to their genetic and their physical traits, their liver had not been trained to develop resistances to alcohol or have that immunity to it. So that's why, to this day, unfortunately, Native Americans are predisposed to alcoholism and drinking. It's not a racist thing. It's just a genetic, physical thing. Now, I will follow this up with the history of the Scottish and Irish people. Scottish and Irish people love their drink. And I will say this because I can trace my lineage to Scotland and Ireland and Germany. So from that perspective, when someone says, oh, the Irish and Scots are nothing but a bunch of drunks, while that is an asshole thing to say, and you could say it's racist, but then again, I'm not going to pretend that Life of a Free Spirit, French Fry Girl, or Charlie Gold even give a shit about designating white people as racist, or anyone in Hater Nation even sees white people as a culture. But to get back on track, right? Because Scottish and Irish people, that their culture is based on whiskey and drinking and having a good time, that also makes them genetically predisposed to drinking and liking to drink. That is why I personally refuse to drink that often, because I know my genetics of being German and Scottish with a bit of Irish in there, and some Cherokee and Creole, actually, believe it or not, that drinking is a problem within my genetics and family history, so that's why I don't entertain it. And although people can say and make assumptions about races and groups, yes, that's an asshole-ish thing to do, but does it necessarily always make it a false race thing? No, it doesn't. But the main thing I want to hammer here is that Life of a Free Spirit sure did a lot of championing for the indigenous and Native American peoples, which that's free to do. I could stand here on a soapbox and say, look how bad these people were treated, or look how bad the indigenous peoples were treated. I could do that too, but I'm not going to do that because I have respect for these cultures. I could at least name the Iroquois, Comanche, Apache, Crow, Seminole, Mohawks, right? These are all very noble people. Navajo. These are people and cultures who should be remembered and respected, not to be put in a special victim box to be held down by a false idea of cultural Marxism. I see people as people. I see Native Americans as Americans. And to see people and put them in an instant box of victimization, that they should be coddled and secured by everyone else and should be tiptoed around, that's kind of racism to me, because you're having one being treated better than the rest. Now, again, to virtue signal about the past and to champion people, that's free to do. And that's not a bad thing to do. I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that. But what I am saying and what I am pointing out with Life of a Free Spirit is that if she really cares about the culture that she's claiming to protect, why doesn't she have a charity for, I don't know, to donate to... I'm pretty sure there has to be charity out there for Native American or indigenous peoples. I'm pretty sure if you Google search it, there's a charity or a way to help these people in their time of need and their situations. Now, again, I'm going to preface this with family that has actually been to the reservations. They've seen the squalor and the situation that some of these Native Americans and indigenous people are in. Now, it is because they're stuck in these situations, because the government and other people cuddled them and gave them free money, and they've become dependent upon that, staining and crippling the once strong cultures that was the Native American and indigenous people. So what Callie's doing is not exactly bad, but it's coming from a place of malice. She's using the indigenous and Native American peoples to get at an internet personality. So she's essentially weaponizing this idea of championing the cause and the history of the Native American and indigenous people just to get at Chantal, which is fucking egregious. And by the way, speaking of Mohawks, in Canada, I think it was during the 90s that the Canadian government moved in and started pressing the Mohawks up there in Canada. And did Callie mention that? No. I think she did show some video, but if that's the extent of her care for the indigenous Native American peoples, that's kind of sad, right? Because she should put her money where her mouth is and donate to a charity. You see, that's the problem with this situation. And Life of a Free Spirit's reaction to Chantal is that she's grossly ignorant, and she's weaponizing history and cultures and peoples just to slight another content creator here on YouTube. I could give a shit about Chantal, but the thing is, she was trying to speak for people that she didn't represent. And I saw in her live stream, and it's been shared on Discord, that there were even some people with Native American and Indigenous history saying, you don't speak for us. You can't speak for us. And that, you know, and Life of a Free Spirit can't. Hell, I can't even speak for them, like in this video here. And if that offended someone, I apologize, but I have historical lineage linking to the plight of the Native American. Okay, so here's some history. This is an ancestor of mine, Barney, which he fought alongside the Cherokee against America and the Yankees in the American Civil War. He was on the Confederate side of things. And there was a lot of natives and Native Americans that fought on the side of the Confederacy against the Union. So that doesn't have shit to do with me, but that's just my history, where it comes from. Whereas Life of a Free Spirit doesn't have any lineage or linkage to history, and she doesn't know the situation on hand. And again, not to parrot the same thing I just said, but she's practically virtue signaling and being a champion for people just to get a dig at a content creator. And that to me is like a fucking offensive. And for someone who doesn't really care about Native American or like indigenous peoples, like, yeah, you can stand on a soapbox and like say how you care so much, but in reality you're not doing shit for anyone. And that's my challenge to Life of a Free Spirit. Here's my challenge to you: actually donate to a charity or cause that benefits indigenous or Native American peoples. That's my challenge. If you really care, as you said in the stream that you probably donated like 2 hours of time for, and are you, Life of Free Spirit, by the way, are you going to use those super chats to donate to charities to uplift Native American or indigenous peoples? My guess is no. You're going to pocket all that shit and you're going to keep it. But then again, to the people at Hater Nation, to wrap up this video, it's all about weaponizing things against other people and utilizing politics and social justice idealisms to get at people and to profit off of other people. Again, if you look at French Fry Girl, Life of Free Spirit, Charlie Gold, they're just parasites to Chantal, Amberlynn Reed, Life by Jen, and these other content creators. They have nothing to contribute to society, to these people's lives, so they fire up a shitty video, much like I'm doing now, and that's all they do. Will they actually donate to charities aiding and assisting Native Americans and indigenous people? No, they don't. I would bet my left kidney on it. That this is going to be a passing thing, just for them to make themselves look good, give themselves a pat on the back to make Chantal look bad, and then they're gonna fucking move on to the next Chantal, Amberlynn Reed, Becky, Life by Jen like situation, because that's all they got. They're sad, they're pathetic, and they weaponize causes and people and histories just to slight other content creators. So I'll end this video here. Hopefully you enjoyed or found this long-winded rant is interesting. If you didn't like, if you're Hater Nation, go ahead and smash that dislike. Metrics is metrics, and by all means comment below. And I will see you guys next time. God bless, stay happy, stay healthy, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy.